Okay, so over the weekend, AD did Akademiks' podcast. Now, because he was in New York. I wasn't going to watch it just because I figured it was just going to be more of the same. A couple different people kept mentioning like little things from it that they wanted me to see or whatever, so I ended up watching the full 3-hour podcast. I was a little bit surprised.
The full 3-hour
3 hours, I know, right? I was a little bit surprised that it was like more positive and less aggressive than the clips that I saw previously, where basically he was in this tiny room with a bunch of goons and they were basically plotting how they were going to murder me. It was a much, much different energy level. But
they say you snitching.
So I appreciated that. The snitching thing is such like a they're like trying to put attention on the snitching thing and not on the fact that I just called their bluff and let them know that I wasn't worried about it and that I wasn't scared. Because if somebody like does a big piece of content where they basically just talk about how tough they are, and then the target of that energy is basically like, okay, do something.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, well, I just called your bluff. So now all of a sudden your superpower is gone because nobody wants to hear about how fucking tough you are if you're not going to do something about it.
I never use that word, bluff.
Yeah. What, bluff?
I've never used that word.
It's a poker thing.
Bluffing.
Yeah. But anyway, I wrote down a couple of different notes of things that I just wanted to acknowledge from it. My first note, this is what I wrote down. I'm just going to read it. Axe seems to think that AD was brought in to protect me. Brick Baby, you can vouch that, like, have I ever had a conversation with you where I was like, oh, I need you here to basically make sure that people are going to leave me alone? That was never a part of why I brought AD around.
We've never had
that conversation, right?
Not to today at all.
What about you? You from out here? I'm fine. I'm doing good on my own. And I never needed somebody like, I don't think there's ever been a time where I like called. There has been situations like the milk situation where AD went and talked to him outside the fucking office or whatever. But in general, I never, of all the gangster ass fools that came through No Jumper over the years, I never had a conversation with any of them of being like, can you protect me in this situation? Like I've always been able to deal with my own shit, even if, you know, me probably calling the cops would be like where I would end up. Doing. I never have done that, but like,
you don't want a motherfucker thinking that you need him. You're a man, so you never.
Yeah, because we live in L.A., extortion fucking capital of the universe. The last thing that I want is for somebody to think that I owe them a favor like that, you know?
God. Oh, my God.
So Ak needs to understand that, because I think there was one time where Ak came through, and he was, like, astonished because there was a few, like, in his words, there was a ton of gang members there. I don't know, like, who was there. I don't fucking remember. But I'm pretty sure it was, like, a couple of AD's friends who were, like, sitting around that Ak looks at him and thinks like, oh, it's a big black guy. He's probably a gang member, whatever. Like, but that was never like No Jumper, the old spot. It was not like overrun with fucking gang members everywhere. That was never. That's not the arena that we're trying to cultivate. We do content, but everybody who's hanging out here is either a host or a friend of a host or a guest that's coming through. Like this is not the fucking Crip hangout like that. And if anybody was trying to make it that would not be the direction that we're really trying to go. So that's my first note.
I don't know how many Crips coming out here to hang out.
Niggas not driving through motherfucking over here. I live over here and I don't drive through over here, bro. I be scared to death, bro. They do not fuck with you, bro. They do fuck. I mean, they fuck with you.
The freeway to where he going,
bro. I will take the freeway the long route just so I don't have to drive through this motherfucker, bro. They be so thirsty.
I swear to God.
You see me before? It's me.
Yeah, all right. My next note, I wrote, there's a fake narrative that is kind of getting pushed on this episode of the podcast, and I don't know how many people are going to actually watch this podcast, so I don't know like to what extent this is actually like clarifying anything for anyone, but there is like a fake narrative that they were both kind of pushing in which I never apologized to House Phone for the outing that took place on the channel. I reject that. I actually apologized many, many times. It never really felt like anyone gave a shit. Like nobody really like gave me credit for apologizing, or nobody wanted to have that conversation, because the whole thing is that when I was apologizing for that shit, you got to remember there was a lot of like blatant lies being thrown at me at the same time. So it was a situation where I kind of had to say like, listen, I am sorry, but also this, and this that you just said about me are not true. So apparently the apology does not count. Yeah, the apology doesn't count if you also are clarifying that there were untrue things being said for some reason. So I just wanted to clarify that for the first part. And, okay, I wrote this down as well. I wrote a lot of the answers that AD gave were basically just him explaining how loyal he is. The problem is that he never gives an explanation for why he became disloyal to me. He started a new channel and decided that he was now loyal to those other guys that he started the channel with. But that's not really how loyalty works. If he was loyal, he would have communicated with me instead of just bouncing and trashing me on the way out. And I just say that because it seems like so many of the questions that Ak gave him, the answer was basically like, well, this is how loyal I am. I'm so loyal. Look at me. I'm incredibly loyal. Now, I understand that like that's an important part of his self-image, but when you look at the way that they actually left No Jumper, to call that loyal is kind of baffling to me, especially since this is somebody that I was on the phone with, weeks before they actually ended up leaving, where we were having the conversation of him telling me, hey, even if this shit doesn't work out, I'm going to still rock with you. I'm never going to disrespect you. I'm going to hold you down, etc. Now, to be fair, AD could have been worse with it. For sure, there was other people who left who ended up being worse with the disrespect and the disloyalty. But, I mean, he did sort of craft this whole entire fake bullshit narrative about me talking behind his back or whatever. The idea that he's still acting as if he was so loyal throughout all that, to me, is just like, I wish that Ak had just pushed him a little bit harder on that, because the truth is that they dipped out as soon as they thought that it was financially advantageous for them to leave. The idea that that is loyal, that is not the definition of loyalty. Loyalty is like holding somebody down regardless. Yeah. The way he keeps coming back to like talking about how loyal he is to me was just like kind of mind blowing, and Ak shouldn't have let him get away with it, but whatever. All right. And then here is my other note I wrote at around the 42-minute mark, Ak breaks down my dilemma perfectly, which is the dilemma that he's describing is basically these other guys have their own channels. So I'm in the position where I'm realizing that I'm paying them and they're also making all this content and doing all this stuff on their own, which is cool. I don't want to look like a hater, but at the same time, it's pretty obvious that I'm basically like paying these dudes to make content on their own platform and I'm not participating in it in any way. And it's a very tricky situation because you don't want to look like a hater by being like, hey, you guys can't do this anymore or whatever. Like that would not have gone over well. I should probably just be reading from my notes. But AD's response when Ak breaks down that dynamic is he says that the only thing that I needed to do was be transparent. That's what the word he says, just transparent. To me, when I was transparent was when I called AD and I said, hey, I don't think things are really working out on the Tuesday show between me and you. I think that it would probably be better for our friendship in the long run, blah, blah, blah. I thought about that conversation for like 2 months before I had that conversation with him. And the truth is that I wanted to be transparent. I wanted to be clear with him and stuff. I'd let the shit build up a little bit for too long because I actually really did recognize and respect the contribution that he had to the brand. But the idea that transparency would have made things better is just kind of like crazy. Like transparency is just having the conversation. AD's like in denial about the fact that I did have a lot of conversations with him about the fact that the content was not really going the way that I was expecting it to go. And it felt very low energy.
So do you feel like they should have discussed the Fig Community situation with you and you would have probably helped them with their venture or?
Well, okay. So Ak in that conversation says, what if Adam came to you and said that he wasn't comfortable with them doing their best content on their own platform / building competitors for No Jumper? And AD's response to that was, if Adam had said that, I would have switched up my whole business model. Now, I have to ask the fans out there, anyone who's watching No Jumper during that whole time period when Back on Fig and Community were first really like taking hold or whatever, does anyone watching this seriously believe that if I had gone to AD and said, hey, I think you guys do the community thing and talking about drama on No Jumper and all the beef and everything, I really don't appreciate that. I don't think it's good. Like it's making things weird for me. Does anybody seriously believe that he would have just switched the business model up? I don't think anybody believes that. Now, Ak kind of let him get away with it in the context of the conversation, which to me was kind of crazy.
Well, this is what I'm saying. If you would have had the conversation with him, did you ever have a conversation with him about you being uncomfortable about the beef getting leaked in any type of form or fashion?
Well, that was the whole thing is I had that conversation with him about I'm going to take you off the Tuesday show. And then I told Lush that I had just had that conversation. Lush told a bunch of people in the Discord like that night.
Yeah.
So then AD finds out, before it even becomes public, he finds out from the Discord that other people knew about it. And I understand that he was upset and angry about that, which is fair because like that is a really weird way for you to, you know, for the public to kind of find out about that. But at the same time, I mean, it was also kind of like a bullshit narrative because he said that I was talking behind his back because I told the other co-host on the show that I was making this move. Now, I don't want to like totally just rehash this over and over because people have already heard this a million times. But the other thing that kind of pissed me off is just the idea of me, because like, you know what set all this off is that I said, you need money to go to war. That's what caused them to basically go on this whole tough guy arc and just talk about they're going to fuck me up, all this shit. When I said that, does anybody in their right mind think that what I was referring to when I said you need money to go to war, does anyone think that I was referring to like a street war? Obviously, I was talking about the content. Yeah. And when I say war, I basically meant two different businesses fighting for a similar audience and to do the best content possible. I was not saying, oh, I'm going to fucking do something violent or I'm expecting other people to go to violent.
I don't even see that.
Nobody in their right mind would ever take it that way. They chose to take it that way, which I thought was just like a ridiculous diversion in the first place.
I would have took you like, you might need to go to work. Oh, this nigga calling me broke.
There's a lot of ways to go to war.
I'm not going to take it as, like,
nobody.
Like, you trying to really go to war.
I'm not somebody that has ever
suggested gang and type shit to even
I've
be
never put
about
myself
no
out there like that
though.
as if I wanted to do anything violent to anybody. That's never been how I've been trying to fix problems or how I've been trying to get through situations, right?
In the midst of y'all falling out, that being tweeted or text or whatever the fuck it was, it might have been kind of like too early to even talk about competition when people are really you know what I mean, don't know where they're going to turn to for their next dollar or whatever the case is, and then you shedding the light on that they need money to go to war. That might be where they took it. Yeah, you know what I mean, like, I know they didn't take it as no fucking option. But
they
like
were offended by
broke.
the idea of me basically saying that they were making less money from Figmunity than they were making from No Jumper, which is obvious. It's incredibly clear. That's one thing that, like, because AD admitted that on the ACT podcast. And to me, that was the only thing that I said that should have been controversial in any way. And they're talking about me as if I'm just popping my shit, as if I just went crazy and lost my mind and decided that I wanted to just tear into everybody and I was just going psycho. I hadn't done interviews since they left. I didn't do any interviews. And then I go on Bootleg Kevin. He asked me about it. That was my first time of anybody asking me about it, so I kept it real.
Didn't they all go on there too?
On Bootleg Kev? They went on Bootleg Kev like the moment that they left, which is like, to me, if I'm AD and I get an Akademiks interview, I mean, he's basically talking about me for 3 hours. It's like, to me, that's a weird move. Like, it would be great if you did a piece of content like that and talked about all the things that they have going on with their business and stuff. The thing is that they haven't really done anything. They do one podcast a week, and now they're proposing that they're going to do a foot race. So to me, it's like there's not a lot to talk about in terms of what they're doing on their shared platform. So they're still talking about me. The whole thing, and I don't blame ACT for doing it because it's kind of like the only thing to talk about, but they're basically psychoanalyzing me on this interview for 3 hours. It's just kind of trippy because if I were them, I would want to be doing content that moves past the Adam 22 era.
But do you think that everybody's really on their like independent bag? Because I see that they're putting more energy into back on Fig and community and not Figmunity.
Exactly. Because why would they put energy into the shared platform when they know that they could probably do better numbers on their own individual platforms? Like, what made me realize that they were really in a weird spot was when I saw a clip of T-Rail talking to Duno, and he said to Duno, he's kind of getting on Duno's ass, like, you need to be doing vlogs. Why are you not doing vlogs? Yada, yada. And I get what he's saying, because if Figmunity is going to be as dope as No Jumper, they're going to need, like, a lot of different types of content, not just them going and doing one episode per week, whatever. But Duno does vlogs on his own channel. Like, he does vlogs all the time on his own channel. So if he does have a good idea for a vlog, is he going to go and put it on the Figmunity channel, or is he going to put it on his own platform where it'll probably do better and he gets to keep 100% of the money that it makes in the long run?
Exactly.
Why would Duno do that? They're just not like properly aligned. Or even T-Rail's doing a morning show now, right? On Back on Fig.
Yeah.
So they already have the news on Figmunity, and then now he's starting a morning show on his channel that basically completely competes with it. But why would, like, if T-Rail is smart, why would he create more content on the Figmunity thing and have to split it with everybody else when he can probably do just as many numbers, if not more, on his own platform? It just doesn't really make sense. So, like, that's all that I like. That's why I'm not worried about it.
You're just saying Figmunity, but I heard that they got on their own. They got some cool sponsors or whatever. Where
they probably do, but the thing is that
but not off of Figmunity.
Everything that they're doing on their individual channels was already stuff that they were able to do while they were on No Jumper.
Oh yeah,
you know, like I let them do that during it, so they didn't leave No Jumper to just do their own channels. They left No Jumper to do the Figmunity World channel, which to this date is like one live stream a week, which is, to me, like, I don't really see how that's going to become like this big crazy thing, you know?
Yeah.
And do I have any other notes? I said, this is like overall, like I just, the narrative that comes out of these guys' mouths has changed so much, because on the way out, they were just basically dancing on my grave and acting as if I was fucking done. Like, they said that multiple times. People can create a fucking compilation of it, of them acting like No Jumper was a sinking ship. That is a direct quote.
On this or before?
Before. Like, or once they left, but not like in recent memory, because now their whole narrative has shifted to, oh, well, we're just getting started. So the fact that we're even doing like similar numbers, or that we have cool numbers on our channel, like that's a big, accomplishment on our part and stuff. When did that narrative change? Because when you guys left, it was, look how good our numbers are doing. No Jumper is dead. That's all I'm saying, is that the narratives change, the goalposts get moved, and then everybody acts like this is the same thing they've been saying all along. So then they get mad at me for doing one interview with Bootleg Kev where they actually asked me how I felt like those guys were doing financially or whatever in comparison to when they were at No Jumper. And I gave a very logical answer, which is that I thought that they were definitely making more on No Jumper. And as a result, they threatened to kill me. And I called the bluff, and I said, "What? Like, do it. I don't fucking care." So that's the whole story of this whole thing, and the tone has changed so much. Like, they literally did a stream where they were basically plotting my death, and then they did another stream 2 days later where they were basically like, "Oh man, we don't want any problems. Like, why is everybody acting like we on some tough guy shit? Yada yada." I was like, "No, that's literally what you said 2 days before." The fact that people can just sit there and say one thing and then say a completely different thing like 2 days later on the same exact live stream is kind of mind blowing. That there's like no effort at being consistent in any way. It's just kind of mind blowing to me. That being said, when I watched it, I did kind of like get a feeling of like, damn, like AD is a cool guy. Like, I really don't think that he's a bad dude or anything. I just think that he got some bad business advice at a certain point from some managerial people in his life. And, he made a mistake, and he might not realize it's a mistake until some period of time from now. But I don't know. It's like, I'm not mad at him, basically. When I watched that, as much as I wanted to clarify the record about a few different things that were said, it also kind of reminded me of why we got along in the first place, which at a certain point when we had been podcasting together and I was just getting mad at him every week about, just being lazy as fuck and not bringing anything to the podcast. I don't feel that way anymore because I've been able to just kind of move on and everything. But I don't know. At the same time, when I did watch the podcast in its entirety, it's like, okay, even though I wish that you had kind of kept it realer with me and that we had been able to work things out together at the same time, I feel you. I understand.